Do we have to monitor weather conditions when growing Christmas trees? Is weather really that important? Let's talk about that. Hey guys, Dan the Man with Ralston Acres. Is weather really that important when you're growing Christmas trees? You better believe it. I tell you right now, it is wintertime in Northwest Georgia. On one of our previous videos, we said something about snow. We did have snow. Well, now we are looking at taking care of plants during cold weather. I don't mean cold like 32 degrees. I'm talking about cold like this morning, 8 degrees when I got up this morning. So, do we have to take care of our young plants? You bet you, we sure do. One of the things that we've had to do is to cover some of the varieties of our plants that we have in pots because they will actually they'll freeze. I mean, it's okay to have the dirt in the root ball around that freeze, but the plant itself would freeze. Generally, I think we've got Murray cypress here is most of our plants that we have here under plastic. Uh, they do pretty well when they're say uh, 10 degrees, 12 degrees, something like that. That's not a real big problem. It got down to 15 before it snowed, and I didn't worry about them too much. But when they started calling for temperatures like 4 and 5 and 8 and 10, 10's about the break even point for me. I say let's get them things covered. Let's get them covered. Why do I cover them? It's just anything to hold the heat in. I can't take them inside anywhere. The way we're hooked up here on our farm, I can't take them inside anywhere because I've got about 1,800 plants. It'd take me half a day to get them in, which I guess I could if it got down any lower. But when it got down to about 10 or 8 or something like that, I think well a layer of plastic over these trees, holding the ground temperature. And as you can see, it's sunshining today and it lets the sunlight through and it sort of warms things in there. Even if it just raises the temperature by 3 or 4 degrees, uh, that's really what I'm after. I'm after getting that temperature on up there where the plant is somewhere around 10 to 15, or say 15 degrees at minimum. Um, but you know, they so far they're looking good. I'll try to turn this thing around here where you can sort of see uh, the basically. But what we've done is just we've just taken 6 mil plastic. You can take you know a thinner plastic than that if you want to. I just happen to have 6 mil, and I bought it at the hardware store, and we just covered the plants, just real lightly covered it. Now where you get in trouble is when you have a lot of wind. We didn't have a lot of things to anchor this down on top of the plants, or it would crush them, and we didn't want to do that. So we tried to put some wood or something down around the edge to sort of hold it in place. But invariably we'll have a 20-mile-an-hour breeze come through here, or a 15 mile per hour breeze, and it might try to blow the plastic off. But uh, at night, which is when the most important part of the temperature watch is, because that's when the coldest weather is, um, it seems to be held on these trees pretty well. But you know, while we're on the subject of weather, let's talk yeah, cold, yes. What about heat? You know, I really feel like we need to talk about heat right now. It's about 28 out here now, which I feel like we're in a heat wave. um, but the is heat, is it can it be a detriment to the trees? Yes, it can. You know, we take the, as I said in videos before, we take the small liners, and they come in little cups, and we will transplant them into 1 gallon pots. And as you can probably see from the other videos, and I don't have any right here. Yeah, I do. I've got one here I can show you. The pots that we pot them up in are black, and so in the summertime, we have to be very careful to make sure that these black pots aren't subject to the direct sunlight when it is already 92, 93 degrees outside. That will heat that pot up to over 100. and we've got roots trying to form in there, and that doesn't always help the tree very well. So do we monitor the temperature in the summertime? Yes, we do. uh, Not only for the plants, but what about the person taking care of the plants? Yes. uh, you know uh, I can't do the things I did probably in the hot weather that when I was 28 I could do. But when you're out here, you have to drink water. You have to, all these things that you have to keep in mind when you're monitoring your heat exposure. So the plants, the person, and another thing is the moisture, rain. We've had times when it would rain every day for a week. Then we've also had times when it wouldn't rain for 6 weeks. We want to monitor that. If it gets real hot and dry, I have a watering system on my small plants here where I can turn it on a timer and put some water on the plants. Now the ones in the field I can't do much with, but the varieties that we grow here in Northwest Georgia are somewhat drought resistant. Your Virginia pines, somewhat, the Murray cypress, the Carolina sapphire, the blue eye cypress, those right there are generally a little more uh, heat resistant, moisture. They last a little longer with less moisture. So we've done pretty well with those. Now the fir trees I can't talk to because I don't really know, but I would say they'd have to have more moisture than what normally, and I think that comes with being raised in elevation. But do we monitor that? Yes, I do. I become sort of a weather geek in taking care of these plants and sort of watching the weather. What's it going to do? Is the humidity high? And that's another thing. uh, we have to fight here, even here in Northwest Georgia. We have to fight Cercospora fungus on some of the cypress plants, which is a fungus that will attack the plant and sort of fire it up from the bottom. And it really sort of, it doesn't really hurt the plant too bad, but it does make it not look quite as good. And these foggy, high humidity days, that fungus tends to uh, want to grow. It really likes that environment. Whereas if it's cold like we got here and the air is real dry, it doesn't seem to prosper as well. Um, but moisture and heat and cold, I think that's something that we always have to be mindful of be mindful of when we're growing our Christmas trees, even the ones in the field. One other thing that I forgot to mention on the moisture is here in about another, this is January. So we're talking about probably late March, early April, we'll start putting fertilizer on our trees here and also in the field. And when you're spreading fertilizer, it's a good thing to watch for a rain coming on. If it's going to rain, say within 2 or 3 days or even a week from when you apply the fertilizer to the ground around the trees, uh, then that's good because the rainwater will help dissolve those fertilizer pellets. If you're doing it with the pellet fertilizer, which is most people will do, and it will allow it to absorb it into the ground. It gives it a better, um, I guess you call it absorption rate when it's sort of had rain. We used to call it raining in the fertilizer. It sort of rains on it rather, and dissolves it and allows those nutrients to go in the ground. Uh, One other thing about uh, the the moisture too is monitor the moisture you have in your fields and where, say, a full a full growing season is going to be. What kind of moisture do you have at different parts of your farm? You know, some varieties don't like to have wet feet. Now, by that I mean it's hard to talk when it's so cold. But what I mean by that is that uh, if the roots are staying moist all the time, that sort of is a little bit more inviting to the bacteria and fungus and other diseases that might be harbored in the ground around the tree's roots, um, and even into the tree. Whereas if you've got, say, a Murray cypress variety, it doesn't grow quite as well when it's in a soil that is of high moisture. I can show you in our fields, um, we've got trees out there that where in a field, and I can see where the water flows down over the period of months from the high ground to the low ground, and I can take, say, somewhere in the middle high ground, and even though the trees were planted at the same time, they will be taller than the ones that were planted on the low ground. They just simply grow better. But one more quick reminder about weather. You know, weather can take its toll on equipment too. I try to keep my equipment as best I can out of the rain and snow and this kind of thing. We're here in the shed, whether it be a tiller, uh, something that you use to drill holes in the ground. Any kind of equipment that you use needs to be undercover at some point. Cold weather sometimes may bother it here and there, but not as bad as the rain, the snow, and this kind of thing. And of course, to be honest with you, being out in the weather during the summer, that can too. Another thing that weather might have an effect on is yourself. You know, when you're out working, and I've already mentioned this, I think once before, you're working in the cold or the hot. You know, you're out in the sun. Sunscreen's important. Keeping hydrated is important. You know, all these things come together that we've talked about in this video to show you why weather is a very important factor in farming Christmas trees. So with that said, thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate you viewing this video. If you haven't subscribed to our video channel, please do. It costs you nothing. It can only help us in putting more videos out. So please try. We want to try to get 100 here very shortly. So try to subscribe if you can. Share it with other folks if you'd like. And we do appreciate all of our viewers, whether you're learning to grow Christmas trees or whether you just like to find out about them. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Farming Around the Christmas Trees.